Hey everybody, it is Jason, and today I'm going to be talking about binding. Wait, why am I stopping? There's normally I'm used to my other channel when there's like an intro, but I haven't really got one for this, so never mind, I'll just keep going. So yeah, if you have stumbled across this video, then presumably you're going to know what binding is, but in case you're a parent or somebody who wants a bit more education on the whole sort of concept of binding, I'll give you a little lowdown of what binding actually means. So binding is a way for people who are assigned female at birth to essentially present with a much flatter chest. So like I'm doing here, where I am wearing a binder at the minute, whereas I'm assigned female at birth, so put two and two together, I'm able to make my chest much flatter. Trans men, transmasculine people quite often do this, as do non-binary people as well. Basically, anyone who feels any kind of disassociation or dysphoria with their chest, and they feel more of an association or a euphoria if they actually have a flat chest, which in my case, yes, I do. But there are lots of things to consider when getting your first binder, and there are a couple of misconceptions and things you kind of have to think about when choosing, and there are various different places you can get binders from. So hopefully this will be a nice sort of crash course if you're getting your first binder, or if you're thinking about getting one for somebody, as to what you need to do really in order to get the best experience. The first thing which can put people off a little bit is the whole thing of safety. Bear in mind that a binder is a compression vest, so it is compressing tissue and body fat essentially that is there. So you need to be careful in terms of getting a decent fit, and also in terms of how you wear the binder, how long you wear it for, and things like that. I'm not going to talk loads about binder safety, but more to the point, one thing I do want to point out, because I keep seeing them even now in 2018, you get a lot of images when you Google binding of these kind of anime style, usually white, slim, able-bodied anime style figures with all this sort of bandaging and tape around, and they look so kind of emotional about it. And it's like, no, never ever use binding tape or bandages, even if you have absolutely like a tiny chest to begin with, just don't use it. Now I know that there are people who do use it for things like cosplay, and I think also in things like ballet and stuff, and also I know in opera, if you're doing sort of cross rolls, I think people use something like that. But this is not that. This is not like a show that you do for an hour or two. This is something that usually people have for a long-term thing. And when I'm talking long-term, I'm talking you sort of wear it every day, every other day for a couple of years, possibly even more, depending on when you come out. So it's a long time. So you want to have binders that fit you properly and ones that you feel comfortable in. And that's really why I absolutely abhor these sort of like, oh, I feel so in this tape, because it's not a thing. It really, really damages you. If you then want surgery later on, that's going to cause huge effects for it. But anyway, on to a less serious note. So in terms of, okay, where do I start? There are lots of different like places you can get stuff from. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pick out the top 3 most popular. Bear in mind I'm coming from a UK perspective. There are a couple of more options you can go for, but these are, as far as I know, the most popular. So the first place you can shop is... Oh, actually, come to think of it, I should probably make it aware, because I didn't know this to start with. It's just online. You can't shop in a store, unfortunately. That is not a thing yet. So anyway, the first type of shop you can get things from is GC2B. Now GC2B is my personal favourite. The binders specifically are better for me. They're not the best for everybody. Some people can't stand GC2B. They find their stuff really uncomfortable. But for me personally, that's the binder that I normally wear. They have sort of the half length, which comes down to about here, and it's kind of like a tank top, or you can get full length, which goes down to sort of around your hips. Again, in terms of preference, it can vary. I personally don't like the full length ones at all, but there are plenty of people I know who love them and much prefer them. So again, it's down to you. Also, in terms of their designs, they have lots of different colours, like you've got your white, black, grey, that kind of thing. But also they've got a nice amount of different types of nude colours you can go for. So if you're a person of colour, then there should be something there that's going to be suitable for you. The other type of shop you can get in America is called Underworks. Now, Underworks, they are kind of more suited to cis men and compressing chest after surgery or something, but there are certain selections in there that people do really like for binding. When I started binding, Underworks was the shop that I used, and I did like them for the time being. But then I basically got a GC2B and I'm like, okay, this is a lot better for me. But again, there are people who swear by Underworks and absolutely love them. I just think, in my opinion, you've got to kind of be a bit more careful as to which type of garment you pick out. And also, there's no kind of nude colours. It's, from what I know, just black and white, basically. Then over here in the UK, there's a new company that just opened up called Underworks. Now, at the moment, Underworks are only doing the half length. By the way, apologies, the Underworks, they do full length as well, but Spectrum Outfits, they only do the half length so far. They have only been trading for about 9-8 months, maybe. They've currently got some nice different colours, so I think it's black, white, grey, and a nice green colour. In terms of new colours, you can currently pre-order those, and in terms of like how many types there are, I think they're sort of in about the same range as GC2B, so I think there's at least 3 colours to choose from. They're really sort of aware of, like, with people of colour, and to make sure that they tailor to people of colour and that they've got enough shades for them, so I'm looking forward to seeing the range that they offer. But yeah, unfortunately at the moment, some people don't choose them, again, because they haven't got full-length binders yet. Now, if you're really not sure about which shop to go for, because all the binders, differ per shop, and you don't really want to fork that kind of money out first just to try it, then one option that is also there, which is the one where I went down, is that you can get a second-hand binder. I got a binder from Morph, which is like a trans charity site that does binding up in Manchester, and basically I got really lucky and I got an Underworks binder for like £1 and it hadn't even been opened yet, but it had been donated. So that option, if you want to go second hand, is up to you, and obviously it's a lot cheaper. You might be able to get ones that are much more local to you as well. Because the biggest problem with us in the UK, if you're not shopping from Spectrum, is of course you've got to pay all the shipping, and you've got to pay the tax on top of that, and all the customs charges and all that bull crap just to get a binder, But when you think you've got the shop that you want, or you want to start doing measurements, again, make sure that you go onto the relevant site in order to help measure yourself. Even when it comes to second-hand binders, you need to have a good idea of what kind of size you're going to be. Because to be honest, they're all a little bit different. I've gained a little bit of weight since starting to bind, so I used to be a large. Now I'm pretty much an extra large, although I think in one of the types I am still a large. It really does vary a bit weirdly. With the GC2B ones in particular, there's like 2 tiers, so you might be this size or you might be that size depending on your measurements. And when I say measurements, yeah, you do actually have to measure yourself, which is not very nice, I grant you, but you've really only got to do it once, and then from there you should be able to get something that fits. Certainly in my experience, having tried all 3 of these. So in terms of GC2B, they fit me the most because there's kind of like, you get a lot of compression here and not as much here, so it's kind of like it's kind of spread around, and the same on the back area as well, like in the lower back. That can also feel a little bit squeezed if you're wearing it for a long time, but normally it's quite comfortable. With Underworks, for me, it tended to compress in certain areas as opposed to a sort of a spread. So it would sort of do it here, but not like across the whole thing. And also the shoulders tended to be quite strenuous. But again, this is just my experience, so bear in mind, like, you might absolutely be like, I love Underworks, why are you dissing Underworks? I'm not really dissing them, but it's just my experience of how they feel, really, when you wear them. With Spectrum Outfitters, they're a little bit different in that, yeah, they do have more of a GC2B kind of spread of compression, but then they kind of have like a really flat front, which none of the other binding companies I've seen have actually done yet, which is an interesting idea. And also there's no seams on the shoulders, which actually makes it up there really, really comfortable. So yeah, I can't really stress enough about how different binders are from shop to shop. So it might be worth getting a couple of different types, again, secondhand, from people who are local if you don't want to fork out that kind of money. But in terms of what I've worn, I've gone through 3 different binding companies in order to kind of get an idea of, okay, which binders suit me the most, which ones do I prefer to wear, and so on and so forth. And I think lastly, just as a kind of a tips thing for clothes, you get quite a lot of people who've said things like, oh yeah, buttoned up shirts are really, really good, and wearing like lots of different patterns on are great. But bear in mind, and I had to go through this as well, with people who have hips like mine, buttoned up shirts don't always work. So I thought I'd give you a little bit of a pointer if you're wearing a binder in terms of what clothes you wear with it. So if you want to wear a buttoned up shirt, that's fine. Normally they work okay if your shape kind of complements the shirt enough. I would indeed go for things that kind of concentrate the eye away from here. So either lots of different pattern, like small patterns, or stripes going down, or something of that degree. So it's kind of heading downwards as opposed to kind of up here. In terms of T-shirts, like I've got on here, this is not the best example, but if you want to go for T-shirts instead, I would personally suggest going a little bit looser, especially if you're kind of my size, because that way it doesn't cling to the binder. I can just about get away with this one, but say you had a bigger chest than me, I don't know, it might not be possible. And then in terms of the design of the T-shirt, black is always good because it minimises any curves that you've got anyway. But then if you want any kind of like logo on or anything like that, bigger logos work better. What I would definitely say is if there's like a kind of a round-ish logo or a small logo here, they're a no-no, because it causes, this sort of bit here causes a curve in the logo, and doesn't look as good as say if you had like a large logo. I mean, this logo is actually quite large, so it's okay, but I quite often go for ones where they've got like a logo all the way across here and down, which gets rid of here because you're distracted by the design. Or you might have a shirt that has like a design all over it type thing, and that also works nicely. There's not really any colour specifically that's better, but bear in mind if you're going for, say, a black binder, you don't really want to wear a white T-shirt over the top for obvious reasons. At the minute I'm wearing a grey binder, and of course that works fine. But if I'm going for white T-shirts, then I do definitely need to wear a white T-shirt. Nude binders, I don't know, sometimes, I suppose it depends on the fabric of, like, if it's a white T-shirt, sometimes you can get away with it under a nude binder, but not always. So just something to bear in mind, especially if you don't want people seeing it. Another thing as well is in terms of how you wear the binder and how to make sure it sits. And again, that will help you in terms of how the T-shirt or shirt looks that you're wearing, or whatever it is you happen to be wearing at the time. So when you put a binder on, what you do is you always put it on over the top of your head. I don't understand it when people say, oh yeah, you can put it on over your hips. No, especially if you've got hips as big as mine. Never ever do this, because it will stretch it really, really badly. You'll get stuck. If you try and put a binder on over your head and it doesn't work, it's too small for you. It's as simple as that. But in any case, what you do is you put your binder on over you like it's a vest. So I tend to go arms first and then put it over. And then what you do in order to kind of, I'll show here, so in order to kind of get it sitting nicely, you kind of have to move everything sort of to the sides, not too much though, because you don't want too much flab here, but just enough. When you've worn a binder for a little while, you kind of get used to the feeling of, okay, it's sitting properly. I tend to call it sitting. And then you kind of know if it's not sitting properly. But in any case, you can kind of, if you've got a half tank binder like I have, you can kind of adjust the bottom here a bit just to kind of make sure that everything here is all nice. Or if you've got a full binder, then I guess you adjust everything up here first before pulling down. And then in terms of making sure the t-shirt looks okay, you quite often get people kind of tugging like that. I know Chase Ross does one where he like does that a lot. But I tend to sort of just adjust it a little bit just to make sure there's no kind of unnecessary curve on the logo or anything like that. But again, in this case, it's a bit curvy anyway. And I have a fiance to give me advice on, okay, does this work? I'm going, no, well, I'll change. But there we go. So I hope that's given you an idea of how to get your first binder. Again, if you want to get it for somebody else, that's all good. But if you are getting it for somebody else, please make sure that they are measured first, because there's nothing worse than because it happened to me, getting a binder, thinking, oh my God, so exciting. You try and put it on and you nearly break something because you can't get it on. It's really, really horrible. So make sure that the person you're getting it for is all measured up. And again, go for a proper sort of a binding company like the ones I mentioned. Also make sure that you take lots of breaks with binding. Make sure that you don't sleep in it, things like that. Again, I wasn't going to go into much binding safety, and there are lots of videos on binding safety, but just make sure that you do what it says in the instructions and don't get the tape for God's sake. But in any case, I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I will see you in the next one. Bye-bye.